Today, I was updating the absolutely mammoth guide to ADA website compliance on accessible.org. If you ever want to become an expert in this space, this guide is where to start. But one problem here is a lot of people don't want to read all through the legal and technical landscapes, and they just want something that gets right to the point. And so that's why I was updating the guide, is to add a more concise, like a list of bullet points that gave you the big picture right away. And so that's what I'm going to go through now. And so here are the key takeaways for 2025. So, just first, website accessibility means you are making your website accessible to people with disabilities. There are technical standards, and they are the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or WCAG, that tell you how to do this. And any version of the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines is going to have dozens of considerations. They're called success criteria that you need to work through when making your website accessible. Now, as of 2025, the best practices for ADA website compliance are: one, WCAG 2.1 AA conformance, or you can take it to WCAG 2.2, and then also publishing an accessibility statement on your website. And the only sure path to conformance is by auditing your website, so finding all of the accessibility issues and then fixing all of those issues. So that's referred to as remediation. And legitimate audits are going to cost $2,500 and up usually. If you have a very simple website, or if your website is very limited in pages, then it may cost less. But for most websites, you're looking at $2,500 and up. And if that's beyond your budget, obviously we recommend the ADA compliance course, which is my course on how to reduce your risk of a lawsuit as you are improving the accessibility of your website. So the course tells you the highest risk accessibility issues, and it tells you how to prioritize those issues, and then also how to find them and fix them. And then the last bullet point I have under key takeaways is: once you've made your website accessible, make sure not to introduce any new accessibility issues, because it's one thing to reach this apex of accessibility, but we don't want to introduce new issues because we've uploaded new content or we've updated the website otherwise. All right, and so now beneath this, I have a quick summary. So this summary is because, those are the bullet points, but now let's just talk through this or read through this on this guide. So the quick summary is the Title III of the Americans with Disabilities Act is what most people are concerned with. Now, this wouldn't apply to state and local governments or their instrumentalities. That would be Title II. This wouldn't apply to organizations that are concerned with employees. That would be Title I. But Title III is going to apply to most private businesses. But one thing to know is that it doesn't address modern digital accessibility. So modern technology like websites, mobile apps, software, etc. What you have to remember is that the Americans with Disabilities Act was written decades ago. But nevertheless, the Department of Justice, or the DOJ, who is the regulatory and enforcement agency behind Title II and Title III of the ADA, and many US courts still interpret the ADA to apply to websites. And it's usually websites because we don't see too many lawsuits involving mobile apps or other digital assets. It happens from time to time, but mostly it's lawsuits, or mostly it's websites. And as a result of this, there is a cottage industry of plaintiffs' law firms that are engaged in filing complaints against website owners. And this is happening in state and federal court. And of course, they send demand letters as well. And there are multiple states where this takes place. So obviously, California, New York, and Florida have been the recipients of most of this litigation, but it also includes other states, so New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and there are other states that occasionally, or that we see some complaints filed in. So as a result, and practically speaking, it's the plaintiffs' lawyers who are really enforcing the ADA, and they're the ones that are really deciding what best practices are, because they are the ones that are initiating all of this litigation. So the optimal path forward is to make your website fully conformant, because then there aren't any accessibility issues that they will have to go on. So I've talked about WCAG 2.1 AA. That's our recommended standard. 2.2 is also a good choice. But the problem with 2.1 and 2.2 is it can take an extra long time. And what clients usually find out is 2.1 AA issues are usually more than enough for them to work through. And so one approach may be, if you have the budget, is to start with 2.1 AA, then you get to full conformance, and then after time, you go with a 2.2 AA audit. So that way you have less accessibility issues, and then you can go ahead and include the higher standard here. So just keep in mind that 2.2 AA has a few additional considerations on top of 2.1. So it's like 2.1 plus 6 additional considerations. So the other part to know is that some requirements in these standards are easy to take care of, or they're very simple. They may take longer, but they're still very technically easy to work through. But others are technically complex, and you're going to need a web development background before you can address these issues. And the other part here is that working through the standards and becoming conformant with one standard or another can take a long time. So maybe weeks on the quicker side, but you're usually looking at 2 months or more. It really depends on who is remediating the website or other digital asset. And then also just if you are remediating, like what team, how fast your team is, how responsive your team is, because you first need an audit to find the issues, and then you need remediation to fix those issues. And that process usually is going to take at least a month. Yes, it is possible if you are really fast to work through this in less than a month, but in my experience, that's not something that happens. So practically, you're probably looking at a 2 to 3 month project. That's just how long it usually takes. And so one problem for many small businesses who have been targeted relentlessly in litigation, we see more and more small businesses are sued, is that for some small businesses, this process can exceed their budget because, as I talked about with an audit, you're usually looking at $2,500 and up. And then with remediation, if you're sourcing out remediation to a third-party provider, again, you are looking at several thousands of dollars. So sometimes small businesses elect for just the audit. But if even the audit is out of range, then of course, again, I recommend my ADA compliance course, because here you have detailed instructions, and it's really like a fast and furious approach. It's like, it's not going to be perfect. And obviously you're not going to have the accessibility expertise that is, a contractor with that expertise and knowledge and experience working on your accessibility, but you will have the people with the requisite backgrounds, and then they can learn from the instructions in the ADA compliance course. And as I talked about, what's really nice is the course teaches you what issues to prioritize, because these are the issues that are most likely to lead to a lawsuit. So there's no reason to not reduce your risk as you're working on accessibility, right? Like if there are these accessibility issues that exist, you may as well work on the accessibility issues that pose the most risk to your, in this case, small business. So whatever course of action you take, the recommendation is that you are proactive and aggressive with accessibility, because again, if you're waiting, then your risk is your risk is still there this entire time that you're waiting to start this project. So even if you take the do-it-yourself approach and you get started with downloading one of the WCAG checklists off accessible.org or the full guide, and you start working on this independently, that is recommended, right? Whatever you can do, just as fast as you can, as best you can, work on accessibility, become more familiar with it, and start. Of course, everybody knows about alt text, and what's really nice about alt text is it is the #1 most commonly claimed issue in these complaints that are being filed by dozens of plaintiffs' law firms in court. So even working through that is going to help you. I will add here something that I don't have in the summary. Widgets are not going to help you whatsoever. So just know that. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I will include a link to the accessible.org contact page in the description. Of course, this YouTube channel contains a wealth of knowledge, and you can find videos on almost any subject. Any question you have about accessibility and ADA compliance, you can find on this YouTube channel. So uh, the YouTube channel, something you can browse through. And then again, feel free to reach out. I will also include a link to the accessible.org services page, as well as the pricing page in the description, so you can look through our services and know about what you can expect to pay for various services. One other thing, I have a video on mini audits. So sometimes small businesses like to go through mini audits because, or go with mini audits just because it's you still get the quality of service, you still get that excellent audit report with all of the issues. It's just for less pages, so the cost is less. Regardless of whether you're a small business or a larger organization, a public entity, a corporation, the advice is always to be aggressive with this. Just get started. If you have been sued, then ideally it's limited to that one lawsuit. So we limit the negative outcome, and then we proceed forward and we work on accessibility. And overall, there will be a positive result because the user experience will be improved. Obviously, accessibility will be improved, and you can showcase this and demonstrate your commitment to accessibility in your accessibility statement. So this is a great roundup for ADA compliance and digital accessibility specific to websites. I will also link to this page on accessible.org. This will be in the description. If you have some time and you really want to know this area, then this guide will be a tremendous help. So all of these resources will be linked to in the description.